Hello, everyone. We are back with another post-game interview for Can You Survive 2021. I am here with two members of the original Sorrento tribe, Rob and Chris, and they will be talking about their very dominant game. Until the merge, but dominant game for the most part. So yeah, let's get started. Welcome to Live Reality Games. Thank you again to LRG for giving us a platform to do our interviews. So let's get right into it. So Chris and Rob, so first up, what made you apply to this game in the first place? So Chris, why don't you go first?
Well, I've been just a long-time Survivor fan, diehard since it ever started, and I've never done anything like this before. Never got into the live games. That was all new to me when I applied to this and started talking to people. I think it was just the aspect of wanting to go out and try it, the adventure of it, and just proving that I could do it if I wanted to.
Cool. And Rob?
So I went to Northeastern in college, and they have a chapter there of a Survivor show, and I applied for the second season. And actually, when I applied, I was a Big Brother fan. I had not seen a season of Survivor. I knew the general premise, etc. But so I kind of went in there pretty cold, didn't understand much about the gameplay intricacies, things like that. I didn't know how hard the other players were planning on playing. I thought I was playing the hardest, but that turned out to be very, very false. And so I kind of flamed out a little bit in that game. And then I ended up producing 3 and hosting 2 additional seasons of Survivor Northeastern. So I had gained so much knowledge from playing, and then also being able to see 3 seasons of college players play. And so this was my kind of not second chance or redemption or anything like that, but just a chance for me to play an LRG with actual knowledge going into it. So once Brandon told me to, he said, spread the word out to, because I have a bit of a connection at Northeastern, and I was like, well, I'll apply. I mean, why not? And I'm very happy that I did. So.
Yeah, initially I reached out to you and I was like, hey, Rob, can you just spread the word to your Northeastern peeps, tell them to apply? And then you're like, I'll apply. And I was like, that works too. Great. So this is a question I had later originally, but since you talked about Survivor Northeastern, did you feel like you had an advantage coming in being on the hosting side previously?
So, I mean, not really. I guess the advantage came just from when I saw the challenges and kind of how everything was set up. I knew kind of what went into that, how much work went into. I mean, everybody obviously was able to see how much work went into it just based on how fluid everything was and how well the challenges were made. But I mean, I could only imagine how much thought went into that. So kudos to you guys for doing that. But as far as an advantage, not really. I mean, later on, I kind of, after talking to some of these players, I was a newbie compared to some of these people. I mean, these guys are professional Survivor players. I mean, that's kind of what I said to my mom afterwards. I was like, yeah, these guys are like professionals, as close as they could be. I mean, not only do they have the experience and knowledge about the community, I mean, you could tell these guys knew how to play. And so, in that respect, I kind of felt like, okay, I'll let you guys do the playing. I'll kind of stand back and kind of use my knowledge subtly rather than more overtly. Coming into it, I didn't want to hide anything. I didn't want to say, I'm this guy who hosted a few seasons, even though that doesn't really mean much. I just wanted to kind of, take a step back and let everybody else, try to assert their dominance and try to make these big moves. So ultimately, no, I don't think it really gave me too much of an advantage. I hope it didn't paint a target on my back, but I think ultimately it was just kind of a fun fact more than anything else.
Okay. So right at the beginning, we do our check-ins. Cameron mentioned this last night or 2 nights ago with Sarah and John, that he was kind of making you guys all stare into the woods and not talk to each other. And but were you making eyes with anyone? Were you looking around, sizing up your competition while you were sitting there for 2 hours, Chris?
I mean, yeah, you can't not glance around a little bit. I wouldn't say really making eyes with people, but checking out to see what color bags people had next to them. One person that really stood out to me was Alan. He was right next to me, and he had some Patriots gear on, and I'm a diehard Dolphins fan. I'm like, oh God, I hope that guy's not on my tribe. That will never work out. You know, and he ended up being on the Dream Tribe, and ended up being one of my closest allies in the game. So it was just, yeah, from the start, I think eyes were definitely wandering for sure.
Okay, what about you, Rob? Where were you sitting? And
Yeah, so I kind of came in towards the end, which I learned later was I was very thankful for that. I mean, I didn't. So yeah, you walk in and then they tell you don't look, but obviously you take a peek here and there. And so I saw immediately there were 3 colors, so I was like, okay, 3 tribes. And then the girl sitting next to me had actually said hi to me on the way in. Was Katie, of course. So whatever, she just said hello, and so she sat there in her pink gear. So I was like, all right, we're not in the same tribe. But yeah, I was kind of trying to size it up initially. I didn't really know. Mainly, what I was looking for is like, okay, what kind of players am I playing against age-wise? I thought it was going to be a lot of kids my age and younger. I turned out to be one of the youngest. So yeah, that's kind of what I was looking at in the beginning.
Yeah, that's what I heard from a lot of people post game, was like the people that were the youngest expected everyone to be that age. So it was a weird, especially your tribe, because on your tribe specifically, going into the game, I wanted one tribe to be 4 that were younger and 4 that were older. No offense. And so that was your tribe. And I mean, you've heard this probably, and other people have heard this. I thought I accidentally made your tribe the weakest. And pre-game, I was like, oh, I wish I made the green tribe just a little bit stronger. I feel bad they're going to lose. You proved me wrong. So, Chris, going into the game, what was your pre-game strategy? Did you have a strategy going in at all?
I did. I purely wanted to go in and play a full-out villain. I wanted to deceive, manipulate, and have fun with it. It's a game. I wanted to go in and be the Russell Hantz or the Tony, or and it instantly changed as soon as we got into our tribes. Instantly.
Yeah, I feel like it's really hard.
Job.
I feel like it's really hard to be a villain, like actively be a villain.
It's tough.
Yeah. Especially when you come in with like the marker tattoos from your kids on your legs. There was no way you were gonna be a villain.
True, good point.
I will say that one of the funniest things throughout the entire event was every time you voted, you ran to the voting booth, and it scared us. So every time you voted, we were like jumping back. Oh God, here comes Chris. So Rob, what was your pregame strategy going into that first day?
Yeah, so for me, it wasn't to be an all-out villain, basically because I've kind of, I tried to be real with myself going down. I was like, yeah, I'd love to be that guy who's just like in everybody's lines and manipulating and all that, but it's just not who I am. I'm really not cut out for Survivor at all. I'm a very antisocial person. I don't really, like to, make small talk with people, that kind of thing. I'm not really somebody who, necessarily looks to make close relationships with people. So for me, I tried to, be a team. I know it sounds cliche, but be a team player, just kind of always be in the background, just because, everybody knows in these kinds of games, and it proved very true in this game. If you kind of out yourself early, if you make a name for yourself, it's usually a bad thing. So I tried to make sure that I was not somebody who was failing your challenges, not helping a camp, rustling any feathers. And ultimately, that worked because of the tribe that I was on. Had I been on the pink tribe, that probably wouldn't have fought. I would have had to play much, much sooner than I had to with the green tribe. But, I think also another thing is, and I know especially at this level of the game, people don't really think twice about challenges. I think challenge performance in general, especially in the team phase, just being able to keep everybody together and keep everybody's mindset as, okay, we're a tribe, we're going to win. There's no two thoughts about it. I think that was very pivotal, and that's something I wanted to do early in the game.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I feel like in general, I mean, when we when production or me, I guess, thought about the Green Tribe at the beginning, who I thought about was Ciara because she made herself like the biggest target in the game, and Chris because you were always like running around. So Rob, I feel like you definitely did stay in the background until, and we'll get to it until the endurance challenge. I feel like that was where you kind of became a bigger name in the game. So Chris, you were the team captain. You raised the most amount of money, and actually, you raised the most amount of money out of everybody in the cast. So, congrats. So going into that first decision, do you feel like you chose the right people for that first challenge? Alan, Caitlin, and Ciara, I believe.
Ultimately, for the win, I chose perfectly. I thought we won the challenge, but I think it ultimately put a target on Ciara's back right off the bat with the puzzles because she continued to dominate on the puzzles. But it was on a gut instinct on just meeting people. And of course, I was nervous as hell being called up in front of everybody. So I did the best I could, and it just happened to work out in the best way it could have for us.
Now, I never actually realized this until right now when I was reading the names. Was that ever a reason that you four became an alliance?
I actually don't think that was ever talked about, the reason why we became an alliance. We just kind of hooked up as we were going back to camp and at camp later on.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny. I was reading the names and I was like, oh, that was like the four.
Yeah, and it just ended up being that.
Yeah. So your tribe obviously won, I think, 4 out of 5 challenges that first day. So Rob, how did it feel to win and win and win and win?
Well, okay, so for the viewers watching us as well as our other tribe mates, I completely understand how much you hated us, and you know what? It's okay. Like that's fine. Like I'll allow you, like, because when I played, we were that tribe that sucked, and it was so devastating because you go into a challenge just deflated, and you're like, well, we're gonna try, but there's just we already knew what the result was gonna be. And for the Green Tribe, it was the exact opposite. I was, so pleased to be on the winning side for once. And so I was just kind of basking in it. And I was like, this is, we're gonna ride this out. We're not gonna apologize for winning. And I don't think it was luck. I think honestly, I said this at Tribal one time. We're not necessarily the most dominant, physically, amazing tribe just by looking at us, but we all have our skills and we really work well as a team. And I think another thing that helped us was before every challenge, we planned everything out. We thought about every little detail. And we said, you know what, we're going to stick with this plan, whether we're going slow, whether we're ahead or we're behind. And I think, a lot of the other tribes may have been more frazzled, maybe because they didn't have as much food or they were voting people out. But for us, we kind of stayed calm and ultimately it worked.
Cool. Now, Chris, did you ever feel like it was maybe a bad thing to keep winning? Because a big reason that you did get targeted at the swap and merge was because of your constant winning. Did you ever consider losing on purpose? That goes for like the reward challenge day 1, the immunity challenges day 2. Was that ever a thought?
No, I don't think. I think we might have jokingly talked about it at camp, but it was nothing that any of us would have really ever done. Bad things happen when you throw challenges, I think, and it played out the way it did. But I definitely think that it obviously put a big target on our backs once we switched and definitely merged.
Now, you also had to make the first decision of the night when you chose Damien to go to Exile Island. So you're the first person we've gotten to talk to who had to make the decision. So what went into making your decision, and did you tell your tribe anything after, or did you act surprised like a lot of the other ones did?
So when I was presented with I had to pick somebody to go to Exile Island. We all knew that Jody was going to probably be the first vote out if we went to travel, when we did go to Tribal Council. So I felt really bad about sending her out there if she was going to possibly be the first to go anyways. And after Damien had told us about his survival skills and camping in the winter and, what he could do in the wilderness, I knew that he was probably the best person to go out there and handle it, as well as maybe bring some information back for us. And so I walked back to the camp, and I played completely dumb. Like I had no idea why they were taking him. And I think that was because we had such a good chemistry as a team from the get-go. I didn't want to ruffle any feathers at all at that point. I planned on telling him that later, which I did. It was the next day, the next afternoon, possibly. I think after we even switched tribes. But I did let some of my tribe mates know the next morning that it was me that sent it.
Okay. Now, Rob, on the not receiving end, but on the other side of it, did you ever suspect that Chris sent him, or how did you initially think Damien was selected to go to Exile?
Yeah, so I never had any idea. So, okay, you guys come to camp, say, Damien, you're coming with us. My first thought is, oh no, something happened to his kids or something. And then you're on the live stream, like, okay, everything's fine. They wouldn't air that. But no, I there was some talk around camp at the time, as we do. So we were just like, oh, maybe they're doing a swap. I'm like, there's no way they're doing a swap of one person. That makes no sense. So yeah, I figured it was Exile. Did I think it was Chris? No. In the back of my head, I remember on the first day you said that you'll be making decisions throughout the day. And at that point, he'd only been one public decision. So after some thought, I kind of figured, oh, okay, maybe this is another private decision that he had to make. And I completely agree with his reasoning. I mean, makes sense. I'm sure Damien did fine out there in Exile. But yeah, we were all kind of just, I don't know. And I hope he comes back. But I think ultimately we're tired of the day and we went to sleep. So
Cool.
He did a good job concealing it. Chris did.
I was going to say something. I don't remember what I was going to say. So as I mentioned before, Chris, you had kind of a core of yourself, Ciara, Caitlin, and Alan, and then Emily was kind of brought in as the fifth. How quickly did that come to fruition?
See, I personally didn't realize that Emily was the fifth. I kind of considered Rob to be the fifth.
Okay.
So that was kind of I think that might have came between Ciara and Emily. They had a little bit of a relationship, and I seemed to gravitate towards Rob and Alan more. So I kind of figured Rob was our number 5 on that. Okay.
Now, Rob, did you know you were so close to the bottom, honestly, of your original tribe?
So yes and no. So I would lie if I said I knew exactly where I stood. Obviously not. But you also have to keep in mind. I mean, yes, people were playing. People were talking, but there was really no need for any serious game talk at the time. I mean, again, I don't know how seriously the 4 talked, but from my knowledge, Jody was first, Damien was second, and it didn't even get to Damien at that point. Had we lost again, could it have been me? Sure, it could have been me. I thought I was going first because I was not getting good vibes from a lot of people. Everyone was kind of saying, oh yeah, it's just Jody. Yeah, don't worry about it. And that's the last thing I wanted to hear because I wanted to be a little bit more involved in the decision. But it turns out I was a little bit on the bottom, but ultimately I trusted my relationship with Chris and Alan, and I knew. Okay, so from the beginning, Ciara was a player who you could tell was playing. I mean, even if she might not seem it, she was somebody who was definitely talking to a lot of people, and you can tell because of who gets up to go to the bathroom, whatever. You're not going to the bathroom a million times a day. I mean, yes, we're drinking all the time, but you're not. So, being able to see that she was going off with Caitlin a lot, she was talking with Emily quite a bit. I wasn't too worried because again, there was no impending vote, so it wasn't like whatever they're saying is going to ultimately, choose who goes home next. I was kind of taking it on a vote by vote basis, and we kept winning. So. Had the time come, I would have played harder, but I felt like I didn't need to, and it would be a detriment to me to try to, shoehorn my way into something that wasn't necessary at the time.
Okay. Now, Rob, you were the one that found the idol clue, right? On the first day.
So I want to get this straight out here. Okay. So I apologize to whoever had me in the fantasy draft or whatever. I understand that I let you down, but there was a reason. I was not aloof to the idol not being there. So during the challenge, I open up the piece of paper that has the clue in it, and I put it in my pocket as I run back to give the stone to the puzzle makers. I didn't think anybody saw me, but there was kind of an inkling that, oh, maybe somebody saw me put it in my pocket because it was pretty obvious. So I read it, and clearly it says the first community challenge is going to be a blindfold challenge. Don't be blindfolded. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, be the caller, and the idol is hidden somewhere in the playing area where the blindfold people can't see. Okay, fine. That was the plan. I was going to, push to be the caller, whatever. The next morning, Damien comes back, and the Pink Tribe told everybody on Exile, including Damien, what the idol clue was. And then Damien proceeds to tell everybody on the Green Tribe. So everybody knows that if you volunteer to be the caller, you're probably going to have a good chance of getting the idol. That's kind of how I took it, because he had made it clear that, oh, if you're the caller, maybe you'll see an idol. Right? So I was like a little more wary about my decision. I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be so vocal because, whether or not I get the idol, people are going to assume I have it. So then we get right to the challenge. And then Ciara kind of whispers to me, she says, you're doing the calling. I'm like, okay. Kind of almost she told me. And we had talked about it briefly the day before. We said, if there's a calling challenge, Rob, you have a loud voice, whatever that means. So Ciara was telling me that before the challenge to do the calling, and it just kind of came to be. And I was like, okay, fine. I thought she was setting me up, to be honest with you. I thought she was like, okay, let me make Rob the scapegoat, give him the caller, and if he finds the idol and it's clearly in his pocket, well, that'll be a reason to blindside him. Maybe that was too much of a, maybe I was thinking too hard, but knowing Ciara, I was like, who could do that? That could be something that she could pull off. So I was, hesitant to do it, and then ultimately opted to actively not look for it. I know it sounds ridiculous. Why would you not look for an idol, Rob? Just get it and hide it somewhere. I wasn't sure if it was going to be big and I couldn't hide it in my shoe. I was worried about that. I was worried about the people on the other tribe seeing me. Believe it or not, I was worried about Jody seeing me, even though, she probably could have saw me and nothing would have happened. But, so all those things were going through my head. And guess what? I mean, we won the puzzle. I don't know if the fact that the other two tribe members were folks on the idol, probably not. But we got the puzzle, we got the immunity win, and it ended up not mattering because the idol, wasn't worth anything after merge. But yes, I was aware of it. I apologize. I didn't find it. Now looking back, I kind of regret it a little bit, but there was some reasoning behind it. I wasn't just aloof.
Now, did you see it? Like, did you actively ever see the idol, or you just didn't even?
I didn't even bother to look. I looked under the cones. I mean, that, just to say, I'll maybe look it under one of the cones. I didn't even think you would put it under those puzzle pieces because under the frame, because it was so narrow. And I was like, how can you possibly hide an idol in this? But yeah, I was on the other side. I kind of looked a little bit under the frame on my own side, but I didn't venture off to the opposite side to look.
We were so hoping that Jody would find it somehow. That would have been so great.
She wouldn't have played it, though. She wouldn't have played it.
She wouldn't have played it.
No way. No way.
But when Jody and Liz were in that unblindfolded position, we were like, oh my God, this is amazing. So moving to day 2, I guess you already talked about that first challenge. So you win, of course, like always. However, we get to the second challenge and you don't win. So Jody went unanimously. Now, did another target ever be considered at any point? Did either of you ever consider voting a different way?
I never did.
No, me neither. It was we had pretty much it was clear cut that it was going to be Jody first.
Okay. Easy enough.
Love her so much, though.
No, she was great. She was not like she had a lot of value. She brought a lot of value to the tribe, a lot of like happy spirits, and it wasn't easy to vote her out. I'll say that. She was a valued member of the tribe.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Rob, you already mentioned if you lost again, you would probably vote Damien. Chris, do you agree that if you lost again, Damien probably would have been voted out, or did you have a different idea?
That's what we had talked about, but ultimately, Caitlin, Ciara, Alan, and I had figured that if Jody was the first out, we would control that next vote. So if we got to that point, it was going to be probably a decision, but Damien's name was the only name that had come up.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to add during that initial tribe phase that I may have missed? Because after that, you won everything until the swap. Any like fun behind the scenes moments when you had so much chill time at camp? Anything that I may have missed?
I mean, there was so much. I mean, it's been almost a month now, but there were just kind of little things. I mean, yeah, just being able to kind of chat around the camp. It was great. It was just a great thing just to talk to everybody. At one point, Brandon, you mentioned putting 4 older players on our tribe. I went to the confession. I was like, guys, how am I supposed to compete for jury votes with parents? Like, I can't. Like, I'm not gonna. What am I? I'm just a 25-year-old bum without a kid or anything. So, like, why would anybody vote for me? Turned out not to be that way, but that's kind of my thought process. Like, these guys have much better story arcs. I'm just some kid who wants to play a game. But yeah.
All right. Well, so you both cruise to the swap, but at that point, your games almost should have ended, honestly. So you get swapped onto new pink, and it's a 4-3-1 scenario, which could be good. Technically it's 4-4 because Katie was clearly going to go with blue in that scenario. Now, when you were holding up the bags during that endurance challenge, it took a really long time. Did you ever consider throwing that challenge to save the 3 greens on the other tribe?
Chris, you can speak to this, but for me, hell no. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, I'm loyal to those guys, but not loyal to throw my own game. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I agree. Not even a question that we were going to try to even think about throwing that.
Especially since just from looking at it, they were the clearly more physical tribe. So I was like, if we could somehow squeak a win out here, it might be our only one. So we're not going to throw this one.
Makes sense. Now you, Rob, you pushed really hard in that endurance challenge. It was insane watching you hold them both above your head for that long because you had to go the longest with 2. It was so hard to watch at the end. You were trying so hard. Did you ever feel like that you made your tribe lose, or did you feel happy with how long you did go?
I mean, a little bit of both. I mean, obviously, you never want to be the first one to drop, especially because Barry. Oh my God, Barry! He was so close. I was staring daggers at him the whole time. I'm like, dude, come on, you can't hold it. And then Justin was, he was kind of fading a little bit. He was using the hand too. So it was, going into that challenge, I was like, all right, yeah, we're screwed. Like, there's no chance. And then, everybody's still hanging around 40 minutes. And I'm like, oh, okay, we might have a chance here. Somebody could just screw up. That's what I thought was going to happen. Someone was going to slip up. They would break a rule. Something would happen. But no. So yeah, I mean, obviously when you're the one who loses it for your tribe, you feel, like a target was on your back. But at the same time, I was the only one that had 2. So I thought maybe people would be like, oh, thank you for taking the second bag or whatever. But ultimately, I mean, I was worried. I was worried after that. I was thinking, maybe people see me as somebody who I said I could hold 2, and I fell. So I didn't hold up my end of the deal. Maybe they would think of that as something to target. So a little bit of both.
Okay. Now we announced the Exile Island twist. Chris, you get sent to Exile that first night, or not first night, but first night after swap. And you choose Alan to go with you. So first, how was your experience on Exile Island?
It was awesome. It was probably the best night, like Alan had said in his interview. We bonded so good that night. We talked about our families. We made a very strong alliance together. We searched for idols. Just had a great time. Ultimately, I think I ended up screwing over Alan's game by taking him to Exile Island because he obviously, they thought he might have had an idol when he came back. So probably wasn't the right decision, but it's hard to make a clear decision, after you've been doing this for, the second day and it's at night and, you're going to Exile Island. You want to take a friend with you. But yeah, ultimately, I think, and I apologize. I'm sorry, Alan, but just one of those things, you know, that happens. And
yeah, I mean, I don't think he like faults you for that decision because I
No,
think he
absolutely
had just
not.
as great time that night as you did. Now, I know he mentioned that you thought the day started later because you were up so early. Did it feel like forever that you were waiting up there that
It
next
seemed like
morning?
a full day, pretty
A full
much. It seemed
day.
like. I mean, we were up. We were trying to come up with games to play eventually, throwing rocks at a flower, you know. We wandered halfway down to the tribal council area, but we weren't sure if we were supposed to leave Exile. We were pretty sure that there was an idol in the pond. And any other time, you know, we didn't have time to go look for it because there was always someone there. But yeah, so we wanted to go down there so bad, but we weren't sure if we could. And I think we actually could have, but we missed the opportunity.
Oh, you had plenty of time. If anyone had time to find it, it would have been you two. I still can't believe, not you, because your clue was very vague, but especially the third clue that literally said to use the kayak. I can't believe no one found it, or at least tried to get in the kayak. Anyway, so Rob, you are back at camp, and it's now a 3-3-1 scenario with green not in a good spot. Let's be real. You were so close to
I was
going.
done.
You were done. Did you have any idea how close you were to being voted out?
I didn't realize how close, but I obviously was aware that it could be a very real possibility. So yeah, so 4-3-1. No, it's not too bad. 4-4-4. Okay, 4-4, not bad. 4-3 as the 3, you know. So that was tough. And you know, I hate to bring it back to my first game with Northeastern, but the exact same thing happened where we got swapped, and you know, somebody actually, so a tribe mate of mine who got swapped to another tribe proposed this thing, and there was we were allowed to talk between tribes, by the way. So he was like, hey, you know, if you guys vote out, you know, or we'll vote out. Sorry. If you guys vote out Rob, we'll vote out somebody. You know, it was kind of like a 1-for-1 deal, like just to show our loyalty. We'll vote somebody off on our original tribe, and then so tribal lines are blurred. And of course, I was chosen for this round again. Why not? I thought maybe because I don't know, maybe they wouldn't choose me. Maybe they would pick Ciara or Caitlin. But you know, obviously, I knew that they should have voted. I have no idea why they didn't vote for one of the greens. It made no sense at all. Completely illogical. But I'm glad that they ended up not doing it. You know, I think John ultimately just walked right into it. I mean, he just blew up his own game to the point of where they were like, you know, yeah, he's a number, but he is too detrimental to keep. And ultimately that led to Katie's vote out. But yeah, I'm still stunned to this day that a green was not voted out that tribal council. It made no sense.
Same. I will forever be
Alan
stunned. Go ahead. Sorry.
Alan and I were for sure that Rob was gonna come up by Exile Island in the truck the next morning. We were almost positive. And when John came up through, we started celebrating and high-fiving and hugging. And I'm not sure if John saw us, but he probably felt awful if he did. And it wasn't because he was voted out. It was because Rob was still in the game. And at that point, we thought we were in a super good position going back. That ultimately changed, though. But
I mean, you were in a good position, not so much
Right.
Alan. So, Rob, John wanted to know, did you have any inkling of the Girls Alliance?
Nothing like for sure. Obviously, I considered it, especially when I was pulled aside, because not only were they just all female, but they were just all together alone for the first time. So the fact that like John pulled me aside, I was like, dude, what are you doing? This is the time where we need to stick together and not allow anybody to go away. You know, you pulling me aside puts a target on my back. So from that, I thought maybe, just maybe, but I didn't think it was an official thing.
Okay. Now, did you know Ciara and Caitlin threw you under the bus and you were the target because of them?
I mean, I'm not surprised. I mean, those two were clearly tight from the beginning, and the fact that they threw me under the bus, I kind of felt a little bit like, come on, because you know, yes, was I thinking about later in the game going after them? Of course. But at that point of the game, there was no thought because, again, it just didn't make any sense for me to do that. If it benefited their games, then, of course, go for it. I'm not going to say don't do it. But, yeah, no, it didn't surprise me when I learned about it after the game.
So did who was on your tribe? Did Steph, Katie, or Sarah ever come up to you and use that as an excuse to turn on Ciara and Caitlin once they didn't have the numbers? So I feel like that would be like a good reason.
No, and to be honest, if so they didn't. But had they, I would have definitely, I would have first gauged how serious they were being. But if I felt they were credible, I would have 100% gone for it. I mean, so in the first night, Katie and I were talking a little bit, and now knowing after the fact, I talked up Alan quite a bit. I didn't know that at the time that I was actually doing something good by doing that. But I don't know if that changed her mind or anything like that. But the fact that I was close with Alan, maybe she thought, oh, let's think twice about voting him out. And then the morning after, it was still dark out, and Katie, Steph, and I went to like the bathroom to chat. And so, from that conversation, we were all talking, but nobody was really saying anything. So that was the first time I was like, okay, maybe there's something going on here. Because normally, if you have some free time, you throw a name out, you throw a plan out, you do something. If you're just beating around the bush, chances are one of you is the target. So at that point, I was a little worried. But ultimately, at that, I couldn't really do much. I had to kind of stick with my green and hope for the best. I mean, John, was clearly a target, so I didn't think it was just they were just saying the name John just because. And so I had to have some faith in my tribe, and they ultimately voted to keep me, which I'm very grateful they did.
Now, the next time you went to tribal council, Katie got voted out. Now, I know Katie went to Chris and said that, oh, I'm married to Alan, keep me. And that was her last-ditch effort. Rob, I feel like I remember she said that she went to you too.
She did the exact same thing. I don't know if it was before or after Chris. But, yeah, so we lose the challenge. Of course, Sarah because Sarah would have been the vote. She gets exiled. So it's like, all right, let's get now. I'm still thinking, why the hell did they not vote a green out? Now it's 4-2. I mean, come on, guys. So I was like, all right, well, we can do whatever the hell we want. So we got together the 4 green, and I suggested splitting it. And then they were like, why? I'm like, because if one of them has an idol, it's 2-2-2. Like, it's the obvious play. So we talked, and we decided to split Katie and Steph and ultimately go for Katie in the revote. And so we broke up, and then we all talked to everybody else. And then Katie comes up to me, like, shakes me, and she's like, I'm married to Alan. And then right away, I'm like, what's your son's name? Because I wanted to make sure she wasn't BSing me. And she says Quinn, and I was like, all right. So she's telling the truth. And then I was like, I can see that. And so I verified myself in my head. And then I was like, wait a minute. Why is that a piece of information that would, want me to keep you? I understand why she did it, because she's like, oh, like, I'm indebted to Old Green, et cetera, but that's not true. She wasn't indebted to Old Green. And I was like, well, okay, if you had another ally in the game, yeah, he's gone, but, he still would have been a help to you. So it didn't really make sense to me as like a final plea. It was more of like I've been lying to you the whole time. Here's a piece of truth. While she's on the chopping block, I'm like, okay, it's not going to change my vote. If anything, it's going to further put the nail in your coffin. And then there was also a plan that Katie and Steph came to Chris and I to vote Ciara out. They were like, hey, Ciara's, now's the time to make a big move, blah, blah, blah. I knew Chris wasn't going to be on board with it, so I didn't even entertain it because I was going to vote with Chris no matter what that round. And then I think Katie ultimately did vote for Ciara, so that was the plan that she was going with. But she went home, and I'm glad she did because – so just quick sidebar. In my opinion, of the players that I played with, Katie and Steph were the best players of anybody that I played with by far. They were amazing social players, and had any of them – well, Steph got voted out at Merge, but I think had Katie – even without Alan, I think Katie would have made it very far.
Katie's scary. I mean, they're both scary. I wouldn't want to play against them. Or Caitlin for that matter. Caitlin, I am learning, was a very good player. So Chris, same round. Katie comes to you. Did you have the same reaction? Like, no way, I'm keeping you now.
I completely went into shock when she told me. I could not believe it, because Alan we had talked about our families, and I was under the assumption that his wife's name was Mallory, but the look in her eyes, and I mean the way she was telling me, I instantly knew she was telling me the truth. She said that they were the big twist of the season. And like everyone would have told you, my eyes got about as big as golf balls. At that point, I did think quickly about, would it help my game more if I kept her? Would she be indebted to Green, like Rob was saying? But at that point, I don't think that there was any time to change everybody's mind. Everyone is pretty much set on getting Katie out. I know Ciara wanted to work with Stephanie out of the two of them, which ended up backfiring later on us. But it was just, it was chaos from that second on. I think that was when I got all my gear and I was ready to go to tribal council 15 minutes early, and they hadn't even called us yet.
How was that round?
But great twist though. Great twist. Hats off to them for keeping it quiet as long as they did. They did
a great job. Both of them did.
Yeah, they did. I loved their nicknames for each other, just so people wouldn't think they knew each other.
And at Original Green, we didn't know Katie's name, so we called her what did we call her? Peloton girl, because she was wearing the Peloton thing, and whatever. We were talking candidly about everybody, and so if we had made a comment about his wife, I don't know how I would have reacted had that been my wife. But they did a really, really good job at concealing everything.
Mm-hmm. Now let's see. Oh, well, that was all my questions. I forgot to read on, and I asked the same questions that I wrote down. So is there anything that I'm missing from the swap tribe that you want to talk about before we get to the merge portion of the game? I feel like the Sarah vote was pretty easy. Rob, you won immunity. You won individual immunity. That was a big one.
Yeah. Sarah was the easy boot at that point.
Now, Sarah mentioned that when she got voted out, no one talked to her. It was a pretty easy, Sarah's leaving, done.
Well, yeah, so we all went back to camp. The four of us were sitting at camp, and Sarah pulled each of us aside individually, one-on-ones, while everybody else was sitting at the camp watching the one-on-one happen from afar. And so, we all knew it was a foregone conclusion. I didn't have to worry about an idol. Ciara actually looked in Sarah's bag and found a fake idol, which Stephanie confirmed was fake. Had Stephanie not confirmed it was fake, maybe would have taken it a little more seriously. But Stephanie confirmed it was fake. That was another reason why she played so well, because saying something like that means, okay, she's full of luck. But yeah, so she kind of pulled everybody, Sarah did. She pulled everybody aside and didn't give any of us a name. So I was like, okay, if you want to pull something, you got to give somebody a name, because otherwise, what's the point here? So she didn't give me a name. I don't know if she gave anybody else a name, but we were pretty. And I had the necklace, so I didn't really care.
Okay. So you both make it to the merge, and merge was a little rough for Green. You had a big target on your backs. You had 5 left going into the merge. So Caitlin leaves immediately, but how did that affect the morale of Original Green going forward into that last day?
Chris, you can go ahead.
I think it brought everybody's morale down. You hate to see anybody have to leave a game, especially someone that was so into the game and so dedicated to it. But yeah, it crushed. I think it really crushed the Original Green members, because we had all become so close. And had spent so much time together back at camp during the early days, I'll call them. So yeah, it was just an awful situation for everybody, cast and crew, and and Caitlin.
Yeah.
Now,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, Rob, did you feel like losing a number still made Green an easy target going forward at Final 10?
Well, so had Caitlin not been medevaced, I think it would have been a very interesting first merge vote. I mean, we were still technically down in the numbers, having 5 and then to the 6 of the blue plus pink. But I mean, who knows what could have happened? We could have all been making inroads. Caitlin obviously was a strong player in her own right. Could we have pulled somebody over? I think it's a possibility. So then once it was final 10 and it was 6-4. Looking back on it, it was not a very good situation for Original Green. I think the medevac ultimately affected the game in that regard. But who's to say? You can't really say anything. I mean, you never know what would have happened. But
yeah. A little plug for tomorrow. I know Ciara or Caitlin mentioned that Stephanie may have been the swing vote if Caitlin did stay in the game. So that's one thing we'll definitely find out tomorrow from Steph is where her head was at.
I'm very interested in hearing that because going in, I mean, Chris can speak for himself, but going into that, I thought Steph was with us. I thought Steph was our 6th, and I thought, okay, we could really do something here. And then the fact that she went so quickly back to Original Blue makes me doubt that. But we'll see what she says.
Yeah, definitely, because I don't know either. Let's see. So, you actually both in the auction went for the challenge advantage, and then you ended up being partners, and you both won anyway. So how did it feel to win that first challenge? You guys were both safe. You couldn't be the first one voted out after merge, which is a big vote. So how did that feel? Chris, you go first.
I think it felt great, especially after Caitlin leaving. Our heads were really on the chopping block at that point. So winning that first immunity together was huge to see where the game was going to shift. And ultimately, I believe it was Ciara that got voted off that night. But hey, going into any tribal council with a necklace on or being immune is what you want. And I think that was the third tribal council that I was safe at. The first one when I was at Exile, and then the one that Rob and I won together. It was a good feeling for sure.
Okay. So Barry has a question. Rob, what made you pick Barry and Justin to sit out at the final 10 immunity?
Okay, so I'll answer that as I preface the previous question Brandon posed. So just one thing to keep in mind, I mean, for everybody, for that particular challenge was tough because that was right after the medevac happened, and so we were all at camp, getting ready for bed, freezing in our sleeping bags, sleeping. So we were awoken. We were like, "What's going on? Is it a Caitlin update? Is there a challenge? What time is it?" So we all kind of go to the challenge area. I was not in the right headspace. I was like, all right, let's do this challenge. There's no chance I'm winning. Let's just get it over with and go to tribal tomorrow. Chris says, hey, let's be partners. I'm like, sure, let's do it. And then I thought we were going to be the first to drop, to be honest. I had no confidence in my legs. And somehow, some way, we ended up winning. As far as why I picked Barry and Justin. So Justin was the target. We had talked about that beforehand. So I was like, well, any chance you have for the target to not get immunity the round you're going after him, do it. And as far as Barry is concerned, I mean, I wasn't going to pick anybody on the green. I wasn't going to pick anybody in the pink for hopes of swinging them. I wasn't going to pick Steph. So it's pretty much between Barry and Albie. And Albie had spoken 2 words to me, and Barry had not. So that's kind of the only reason. No hard feelings. That's kind of why I chose you, Barry.
All righty. Easy enough. Now, let's see. Where did I leave off? So Ciara goes home first, and then the next round, Rob, is ultimately the round you left. Now, obviously, you must have gone into Tribal Council thinking that you were in the right side of the number. Something was going to happen, probably. So what was your thought process going into the Tribal Council you left? What did you think was going to happen? So
going into the one I left, I thought I was going home. Going into the one that Ciara, I thought we were going to get Justin out. So for the Ciara vote, we kind of were all huddled. Everybody besides, I think it was Albie and Justin, were huddled around the fire. And Ciara was like, "Are you good with Justin?" Everyone nods their heads. Yeah, great. Now again, I had the necklace, so I was maybe taking a back seat because why am I going to push my agenda when I'm not going to be voted out? Why do I have to fight for my life? When, obviously, looking back, that's the wrong play, but that's kind of where my mindset was at. So once Ciara got voted out, I was like, damn, okay, we're kind of screwed here. So going into the next tribal council, I knew that it was probably going to be me or Chris, but most likely me, just kind of based on the vibes I was getting from people. Everybody talked, everybody gave me a name, but Angela was like, vote Albie, vote Albie. I'm like, Angela, you're not going to vote with me. I know you're not going to. Listen, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I know it's not true. So honestly, and this might sound weird, but I was really, I did not have a read on Damien. I had no idea and the reason why. So yes, he's Mr. Truth, Mr. Tell the Truth. But one thing that we forget is that he did not tell us anything about Exile. In fact, he lied about a couple of things on Exile, or at least he blatantly forgot to tell us. Because when we swapped and Sarah told us about Exile, that was all new information to me. Sarah told us about the idol and the idol clue and what they did in Exile. Damien told us none of that. So in the back of my head, I was like, Damien might be playing harder than we think here. And so all this, I'm Mr. Truth, I never tell a lie, maybe that's all BS. So I did not think he was with us. I thought he was squarely with everybody else, at which point I was like, Chris and I have no chance. Even if they split the votes, we have no chance. So going up to the vote, I told Chris, because I didn't think Chris would vote for me. I said, Chris, listen, if you have to vote for me, like, go ahead. No hard feelings. I mean, at that point of the game, I was kind of okay with leaving. I figured if I didn't leave that round, I'd probably be gone the next one. So I was like, Chris, it's okay. You can vote for me. And part of the reason I said that was because I was very much considering voting for Chris. So I wanted to kind of clear my own conscience. I was like, listen, if you want to vote for me, fine. I might vote for you. I ultimately ended up not voting for Chris because I thought maybe this Albie plan would have a slight chance to work. But I'm totally okay with Chris voting for me. I'm very happy that he did it and that he was able to go on a few rounds afterwards.
Yeah, now that was a good move for Chris, but why do you regret not voting for Chris? Because if that would have happened, it would have tied, I believe, between you and Chris, and you at least would have had a chance.
That's true. So yes. So I had heard that I would be the guy in the revote. So I figured, okay, 4-4 means nothing to me because I'm still going home. So I would have had to vote for Chris and Chris not vote for me. Then it would have been 4-3 votes for Chris, 3 for me. And so at that point I was like, I don't know. Maybe the emotions of the game. I really didn't want to put Chris's name down and then have him vote with me and have him go. I just didn't want to do that to Chris or to myself. So I was ultimately happy with the game I played. I know people are talking to me like, oh, you got to play for yourself and everything. And yes, trust me, I was playing for myself. I didn't throw it or anything like that. I just felt that that'd be the best way to go, especially since I'd most likely be going the next round anyway.
Okay. Trust me, I understand the situation.
Yeah.
After playing a game, you don't understand how the emotions actually affect. You don't understand how much it does actually impact your decisions until you're in that moment.
And what Chris did, which was very good, is I never doubted him. And so, for example, had Ciara been in Chris's shoes, I would have written Ciara's name down without thinking about it because I knew she would do the same to me. Mm-hmm. And with Chris, I wasn't sure if he would do the same to me. And so that's what made me feel bad about potentially writing his name down.
Now, Chris, you did write his name down, which ultimately was one of the better moves of the game, honestly. Now, Rob said that he gave you permission. Did you know that the votes were splitting between you two? Was that actively like, I have to vote Rob so that if like when it splits, I'm not voted out?
I had a feeling that it was going to be Rob or I in that vote. Nothing had been confirmed, but when Rob approached me on the way to Tribal Council, pretty much confirmed it to me that it was going to be me or him and to go ahead and vote for him if I had to. I was still torn until I was walking up or running up to the voting booth. And honestly, that was the hardest vote that I had to cast in the entire game. It was one of the hardest things I had to do.
But ultimately, it was a good move. It was a good move,
hey.
And it got you like 3 steps further. So
yeah, I was sitting on the jury bench. I was like, is Chris going to pull this shit out? Is he going to somehow find a, sorry if I'm not allowed to curse.
Oh, no,
But
you're fine.
Is he going to find a way to finesse his way to the final three? And you almost had it there. So I'm very happy that you were able to do that.
Thanks.
I thought there was definitely a chance. That's for sure. Because I didn't know what the heck was happening when Barry left. Anyway, so we get to the next round. Barry goes home, as I just said. So from your perspective, because you've been on the outside since the merge, but then the Barry vote comes around and it is unanimous. So obviously you are let in on the plan. So explain that round from your perspective.
Yeah, I thought it was. From the time after Rob when I thought I was next for the next two votes, and I guess I don't know exactly what happened, but Barry was trying to double cross his alliance, and right before we went down to tribal council, I can't remember if it was Stephanie. I think it might have been Stephanie that come over to me and said, "Vote Barry. Just trust me. Vote Barry. You're good. You're good." That's all I needed to hear. I just shut my mouth, went and put my head down, and I voted for Barry, and it worked out for me.
Cool. Now, going after that round, obviously everything changed. So Green ended up teaming up with Pink to take out Blue. So how did that all come to happen?
Okay, so once again, I figured it was going to be me again the next round. I had no idea. Angela and Waylon finally approached Damien and I and wanted to make a Final Four. And they seemed very adamant about it. We were down with it. We decided we'd get Stephanie out first, and then go on to be Justin or Albie next. And then it pretty much everything seemed to fall in my lap, Brandon. After Rob went, the Barry vote and the Stephanie vote, things just happened, and it was brought to me that you're safe again. We're going to take out this person. After the Stephanie vote is when things crumbled with the Final Four. They decided to go a different route, but so I was very lucky to have stuff fall in my lap at the very end.
Okay. Now, in terms of Stephanie leaving, what went into that decision to choose Stephanie over Justin and Albie that round?
Well, I personally think that Angela or Waylon already had an alliance with them as well. So I think that they ultimately planned on going back to that side anyways. So I think that Final Four might have been just a ploy for us to vote with them to get Stephanie out.
Gotcha. So obviously we get to Final Six. This is when you get voted out. But going into that Final Six Tribal Council, do you assume the Final Four is sticking together? Or what is your thought process going into that Final Six Tribal?
I did. Very confident that we were going to, after the Stephanie vote, that we were going to stick to our plan. I believe we were taking Justin was going to be the next one out. There was a lot of scrambling before that tribal council, a lot of scrambling that I wasn't part of. Damien and I kind of took a back seat. We figured we were safe. Albie at one point came over to us and, pretty much lit into us. Like, come on, you guys, do you really think your Final Four is that safe where you're not even talking to anybody else? And we were like, well, what are we going to entertain for an idea? Who else would you guys want to get rid of? And there was really there was no communication about it really. And thinking that our Final Four was legit. You never think 100% that anything's legit, but I was pretty sure. I was pretty sure that they were going to stick with us, and ultimately they didn't, and it backfired on them as well in the long run.
Now, did you feel, because I know at the beginning of the game, you and Damien weren't really close, and Damien was supposed to be voted out. Did you come together when it was just you two left? Like, were you a pair, or was it just like, we have to work together at this point?
I think we were just sticking to the original green. Throughout the whole game, I really tried to stick with the green. Didn't really venture off any from them, which ultimately probably hurt me at the end because I didn't have the alliances on the other tribes. So yeah, I think without even forming an alliance, I think Damien and I did come together towards the end, and we're working together.
Okay. Now, had that Final Four actually happened, you, Damien, Waylon, Angela, what is your final three in that situation?
my final three that I would have wanted to be in would have been probably Waylon and Damien. I think I would have had the best shot at beating those two over Angela. I think Angela played a great game.
Angela probably beats anybody, honestly. So ultimately, you both end up on the jury. So you had the decision at the end of who would win, and you both ended up voting the same way. You both voted for Albie to win. So, Rob, what went into that decision for you? Why did you vote for Albie to win?
So, I mean, going into it, I did seriously consider all three. Damien, obviously, he was a green. I had said at least at original green. I think after, I don't know if it was before or after Jody's boot, I was like, I really hope and I really think one of us is going to, be there at the end and has a chance to win. So, I didn't really feel good about reneging on that. But, ultimately, I based on what I've heard, from the tribal councils and from the few rounds I was in at Merge, he was just he didn't really get there on his own volition. He was kind of, there based on other people being voted out. And then as far as Justin was concerned, I mean, look, I think he played a good game. I don't think he played a poor game. I think he played a decent villain role. But I think he just, the one line that I think, I didn't love when he was like, I'm here, all you guys are here because of me. Now, is that partially true? I mean, yeah, it's probably partially true, but was he the mastermind behind every vote? I didn't see it that way. Had I seen it that way, I might have voted for him. But with Albie, what I really liked about his story arc was a couple of things. One is, the first 4 rounds of Merge, his name came up. And to me, to have your name come up but still survive is a big thing in this game. That means that the minority is targeting you, but you have the numbers to keep trudging along, keep surviving round and round. And then at the end, it seemed that he was going to be the boot for a few rounds, but he just kept winning immunity. And I also, value that as well. I said, you know what? The kid won it when he needed to. And yeah, I mean, he didn't have to sweat it out those last few votes, but he didn't need to. I mean, he won those challenges fair and square. And that was, points in his favor. So ultimately, I think that is what led me to vote for him. I also talked to him for a few seconds. I didn't talk to him too much. So that didn't really play much of a role in it, but I just think he played the best overall game when compared to Justin and Damien.
Okay. And then, Chris, what went into your decision for voting for Albie to win?
I thought of all three as well. I tried to weigh the pros and cons on each one. Damien, he's just a natural survivalist. That was like a playground for him out there, He's big and strong, so, and I mean, and the thing with Damien that he didn't play a very social game. He didn't want to lie at all, which he ended up, he told a couple of lies about Exile, but he didn't seem to want to talk about alliances. He kind of just was not the vote at the time, like Rob said. I'll probably recap on a lot of stuff you said, Rob. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
But then and then you got Justin. Justin, I thought he was going to be the villain that he kind of appeared to be on Surviving Maine. So I kind of went in with that mindset. And it wasn't until really the end of the speech that I realized, well, wow, he really wasn't trying to play a villain this time. He was playing a different game. And I think he was a huge strategist on the Blue Tribe, coupled with Albie. Did he make more decisions than Albie? He very well may have. But then you got Albie. He comes in completely out of his realm from what he said, and he plugged away. His name come up a lot, like Rob said, and he always had the numbers to keep him safe. And when it came down, I think he won the last 3 immunity necklaces, which got him into the finals ultimately. I just think overall with his social game and everything, he played the best game out of the 3.
Cool. Now you both made it to the Merge. You both played really well, but you ultimately were voted out. So, Rob, is there anything that you would change about how you played the game this time?
I mean, yeah, you have regrets here and there. The fact that I could have been voted out not once but twice earlier makes me feel a little bit more, I guess, satisfied with my ultimate position. The fact that I was able to, beat out the players who were trying to gun for me, that feels good. But I think, and the situation. So the fact that we had the merge, and each merge vote was so quick, and there wasn't a lot of time to chat. Granted, I probably should have spent some more time the night before making some stronger bonds with Blue and Pink. I did not. That's kind of my main regret, is just maybe talking to Angela and Waylon a little bit more, maybe talking to Steph a little bit more, just to kind of just be in their heads a little bit more, be a little bit more in their circle. I failed to do that. Would it have changed the outcome? Probably not, but I don't know. And probably looking for idols a little bit more after the merge.
Okay. And Chris, same question to you. What would you change, or do you have any regrets about your game?
I think I would definitely try to strategize more, and try to definitely make strong bonds with people from the other tribe, just in case you need them after a split, or definitely at a merge. Definitely the idol thing too. Got to get out there and look for more idols. But other than that, I think I played a pretty legit game, and I really enjoyed it, and I met some great people in the process, and I think ultimately we all came out winners, especially for the charities.
Awesome. Yeah, a lot of money was raised. A lot more than I anticipated, that's for sure. So we have a few rapid fire questions. So just first thing that comes to your head, I guess. So we'll go, Rob, you answer first. Chris, you answer second for all of them. So first one, who is your closest ally in the game?
Chris.
Caitlin.
Caitlin. Okay. I actually expected you to say Alan.
Ultimately, Caitlin and I had made a bond very, very, very early. And even though Alan and I became very close, I just had a feeling that she was my strongest ally.
Okay. So who is one person you wish you met in the game or could have worked with more in the game, Rob?
Angela.
John.
And Chris. John. Okay. What was your favorite challenge?
The puzzle one, the ones with the 3 puzzles.
Okay.
The grappling hook and ladder ball.
Awesome. Oh, that was the worst challenge. What was your favorite behind the scenes moment? So not challenge, something that people wouldn't have seen on the live streams.
Oh, Damien using a piece of wood to cut wood.
Okay.
Very similar. All the cool stuff we did at camp, trying to fish, making projects, just stuff like that.
Yeah, you were a really crafty tribe. You made, like, I heard about the fishing hook. I heard about the idol, obviously, everyone saw. Was there anything else that you guys made?
Damien was weaving a fishing basket. He worked on that for hours.
For fun, just because he was nothing else to do. That guy is someone. I have so much respect for him. What a guy. He has so many skills that I wouldn't even think about potentially having.
Same. And then finally, would you play again?
No, and not. I can explain that. Not because I didn't enjoy my experience. I just feel like I fulfilled everything I needed to fulfill, and if I were to play again, I would not have as good of an experience as I had this time. So I want to kind of go out on a high note.
Makes sense.
100,000 times, definitely.
Okay. I actually have the same thought as Rob. I haven't played again because I'm like, ooh, there's really no way I can do better. So why would I?
Well,
so real quick, why should people apply next year? Yeah, that's the question. So Rob, why should someone apply for next year?
Well, you know what? Obviously, I'm sure a lot of people who are Survivor fans, people who are super fans, or people who even seen the show casually, it's obviously a dream it's a dream scenario just to be able to go out there for 39 days, meet people, play challenges, backstab, and ultimately have a chance to win $1 million. This is the next best thing. I mean, yes, it's not hosted by CBS. There isn't the CBS award of it all. It's not 39 days, but I think this is the next best thing, if not better. I mean, you have the full immersive experience of the outdoors, having to fend for yourself, having to make alliances, having to vote people out that you don't want to vote out. I mean, it's one thing to play an online game and just write somebody's name down, but when you know the person, when you spoke to them, when you heard about their family, when you know their story, you know what they're playing for, it becomes a lot more difficult to write their name down. And it might, for somebody who hasn't played, it might sound ridiculous, but it's true. And just being able to kind of not look at your phone and just be immersed in nature and just talk to people. It's really a treasure. And even if you don't make it that far, you get a full experience. So I would encourage, and I have encouraged a lot of people that I know to sign up and play, because it's a once in a lifetime experience, and you're really not going to find it anywhere else.
Awesome.
Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, it was a dream come true for me. I've always wanted to do something like this since I started watching Survivor, and I enjoyed every minute of it. And I would tell anybody to get out there and apply for it. It's an adventure. It takes you out of your realm. And you get thrown into wilderness with a bunch of strangers, and you have to figure out a way to survive. And it's great. It's so awesome. I wouldn't trade anything in the world for it.
Awesome. So real quick, this was a charity event. So you were both playing for different charities. So real quick, what was your charity? And give a quick shout out to them. So Rob.
Yeah, so I played for St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, a very well-known charity who doesn't charge parents of children who have cancer and are patients there. And I felt like, it's a very worthy cause. And I know some people tangentially who have been helped by the charity. So that's what I was playing for.
Awesome. And Chris?
I was playing for the National Autism Society of Maine. They help individuals and their families with many, many different things to do with autism. And I have a lot of friends and family that have been affected by the disease, and I was glad to help them out.
Awesome. Now, Rob, you ultimately won $400 for St. Jude's, and Chris, you won $700 for the Autism Society of Maine. And I know Autism Society of Maine made a Facebook post with your picture, and I wasn't sure if you saw it, but
No.
You haven't? I'll find it and I'll send it to you.
Awesome.
Yeah, they made a post about it. So yeah, that's all my questions. Do you guys have anything else you want to add before we end this?
I just want to thank you and the entire crew, staff, cast, everybody for this amazing experience, and I'll never forget it.
Yeah, same here. Awesome job, especially for the first season of doing this. I mean, it ran off without a hitch. Challenges were fantastic. The twists were great. The idols were great. The clues were great. The location was great. The supplies, all the stuff that I'm sure you prepared for that ended up not needing to be prepared for. The arm casts and the medical equipment and all that. Just props to you guys for thinking about all that and making it such a true and genuine experience for me. Thank you to everybody who played. I'm very happy to have met each and every one of you. You're all great people. I hope to, see you on the other side at some point. And, I'm very thankful for this experience, thankful that I got chosen to play. And yeah, just very, very thankful.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for applying and playing this first season. You really applied with no previous knowledge at all. So it was kind of like a shot in the dark for you guys to apply and do this. So thank you. And everyone listening, make sure you follow Live Reality Games on YouTube and Facebook. They have a lot of content about different live games that happen over the entire year throughout the country, in Canada, all kinds of different games going on. Make sure you follow Can You Survive on Facebook. We are doing a second season next year. So applications will be coming out in November for our 2022 season. It'll happen, actually, fun fact, I have the dates. So it'll be happening 5 days this time. It'll be June 22nd through 26th. So it'll be a 5-day game instead of 4. Exciting stuff. So yeah, just follow us on Facebook and apply for next season. And with that, thank you, Rob and Chris, for playing again and for doing this interview. It's been fun to chat.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thanks, Brandon. See you, Rob.
Bye, Chris.